At the mixer, an old elementary school classmate looked down on me, saying, "This guy's just a low-educated driver." My name is Michael. The one who looked down on me was Kevin, a classmate I've always found difficult to deal with. Kevin has been harassing me since the 3rd grade. Kevin's family is quite wealthy, and he always bragged about it. I didn't feel like going to the mixer that day. It was my day off from work, and I was enjoying a leisurely walk around town for the first time in a while. Then, unexpectedly, I ran into Kevin, whom I hadn't wanted to see, and he called out, "Isn't that Michael?" He begged me to come because they were short one person for the mixer, and I ended up being dragged along by Kevin. Kevin works for a top-tier company, and since he travels abroad, all the women at the event were flight attendants and quite attractive. I was dressed casually since it was my day off. Kevin was dressed in a sharp suit, making it seem like I was just there to make him look good. However, that mixer ended up completely changing my life. The last time I met Kevin was when I was 18 years old. It had been almost 10 years since I'd seen him. Back then, I was indeed working as a truck driver. But now, things are different. This ties back to my early childhood. I was an only child, and my mom worked as a company employee, and we lived behind my grandma's house. I was a lively and mischievous kid in kindergarten and remained cheerful even when I entered elementary school. I don't remember much from that time, but that's what my mom told me. Kevin used to come to my house often, and we would enjoy playing games together and visiting each other's homes until one day. The harassment started when we were in the 3rd grade. My dad passed away from cancer. During my dad's hospitalization, my mom and I visited him in the hospital every day. Then, Dr. Smith, the attending physician, asked, "What's your name?" "I'm Michael." Dr. Smith encouraged me, saying, "Michael, make sure you study hard." After my dad passed away, I became very withdrawn and my personality darkened, but I never forgot Dr. Smith's words and started to study hard. Around that time, my maternal grandma suggested to my mom, "Rent must be tough, why don't Michael and you live with me?" "That sounds good." My mom agreed, and my mom and I moved in with my grandma. My grandma's house was old, and after Kevin visited once, the next day at school, he told his classmates, "Michael's house is so old and poor looking. If you go there, you'll be poor too." After that, no one wanted to play with me, and I spent all my time studying alone. I was isolated at school, and during lunch breaks, no one spoke to me while everyone else gathered around Kevin, chatting about games. One day, my grandma said, "Your birthday is coming up soon, Michael. I'll buy you a new game." But I shook my head and surprised her by saying, "Grandma, can you buy me a textbook instead?" "Michael, do you have a dream since you're studying so much?" "Yes. I want to become a doctor." Both my grandma and mom were surprised. "That's wonderful. If you like studying that much, shall we consider sending you to tutoring school?" suggested my grandma. Thanks to the money saved from moving, my mom also supported me. From then on, I lost interest in games and attended tutoring school 4 days a week. As I got older, Kevin started attending the same tutoring school. Even there, he would say things like, "Isn't it bad for someone from a poor family like yours to attend a place like this?" Everyone at the tutoring school looked at me. I felt like I had done something wrong. Eventually, I quit the tutoring school. I was fed up with everything. My mom worked late every night, and although my grandma made dinner for me, I had no appetite. I stayed cooped up in my room, exhausted and asleep. I skipped school the next day as well. I couldn't go to school for a while. My grandma was concerned about my health and took me to the hospital, but there was nothing wrong with me. I just felt an overwhelming sense of weakness. Knowing there was nothing physically wrong with me, Grandma was relieved, but I still kept to my room. Not wanting to worry my grandma or mom too much, I forced my tired body to go to school a few times, but then Kevin, a classmate of mine, shouted loudly, "Hey, Michael, you quit tutoring after all. Poor people can't help it, huh? And man, you're always wearing the same clothes. Can't you afford new ones?" Everyone in the class laughed coldly. I could have asked for new clothes if I wanted to, I just wasn't interested in fashion. I started to hate school even more and couldn't go to school again. Around that time, my mom's sister, Linda, suddenly moved into our house and would rest in a different room during the day. Although Grandma's house was old, it was large and had many rooms. I later found out that Linda had been unable to have children and had divorced her husband after he started seeing another woman. Linda seemed to be suffering a lot emotionally. Linda graduated from Harvard and was working for a top-tier company. My mom said. Hearing this, I asked her, Linda, if it's okay, could you teach me? And though she had lost her smile for a while, she smiled at me then. You love studying, Michael, so why don't you go to school? I hate school, I replied. Linda seemed thoughtful and then, the next day, she went out for the first time in a while and returned with a mountain of textbooks, which she thumped down on my desk, saying, So, where shall we begin? I started with the curriculum for my current school year. Whenever I stumbled, Linda helped me. Even though I was truant, I was advancing rapidly in my studies. Linda, too, began to regain her energy bit by bit. Still, she continued to visit a psychiatrist and take medication. My parents had married for love, as had Linda, it seemed. Not being able to have children must have been very hard for her. In hindsight, it wasn't just about not having children, being betrayed by her husband must have been truly painful. Amidst all this, Linda started helping out with household chores at Grandma's house. I barely went to elementary school and became a middle school student. I could feel the spring warmth, but I felt no joy. From the first year of middle school, I was again in the same class as Kevin. Kevin's harassment continued in middle school. However, I decided to go to school just to study. Maybe Linda's teaching was so effective that even French class seemed easy. I've been a night owl for a long time and I was so sleepy in school that I ended up dozing off. The teacher scolded me, and Kevin led everyone in laughing at me. Yet, I was at the top of my year group in exams. I never fit in with group activities. I would go straight home and receive more one-on-one lessons from Linda. I enjoyed math so much that I was already studying at a 9th grade level. Next, I moved on to high school level studies. One day, Kevin said, You just come to school to eat lunch, right? Being poor, you can't play games and have nothing else to do but study at night. Being at the top of the year group, huh? The rest of the class buzzed about games and clubs. Neither held any interest for me. I was isolated again in middle school. Why is school so boring? These thoughts continued day by day. Yet, because I was no longer truant, my mom was happy. When I was in 8th grade, a girl, who wasn't very noticeable, confessed her feelings to me. It was Valentine's Day, come to think of it. I gave her the mobile number my mom had bought for me, and we started chatting via text. She said she wanted me to help her with her studies, so I went to her house. Her mom, a kind nurse who mainly worked night shifts, welcomed me warmly. I studied with her and then went home. It seemed she didn't have her dad around, and her mom was often out working at night. On Sundays, we'd occasionally meet at the bakery inside the supermarket using our pocket money, and I'd tag along while she shopped for clothes. I'd also text her and help her shop at the supermarket. I enjoyed these shopping trips. Although she usually wore glasses with her school uniform, she switched to contact lenses on her days off and looked very stylish and cute. She took me, who had no interest in fashion at all, and helped me pick out clothes for me that I could afford within my allowance. Linda would tease me, saying, Michael, you've been looking quite handsome lately. We both laughed. Then, in the evenings, I would study high school level material with Linda's help. One Saturday, as my girlfriend and I were eating hamburgers, Kevin and some classmates were there too. There goes the poor guy and the girl with glasses. Michael, is she treating you today? He jeered. Kevin, it's fine to joke about me, but she has a name. Call her by her name, I responded. Did she even have a name? Probably no one knows it. But she's not wearing glasses today, huh? He said before leaving. I told her that Kevin was famous for being a jerk, but she didn't seem to mind that. Then, in our 3rd year of middle school, she told me she was going to a private high school and that her mom was getting remarried and they would be moving. Eventually, she transferred schools. We continued to text for a while, but as she got busy with tutoring for her exams, our communication naturally faded away. The atmosphere in class shifted towards the final exams and getting into high school. I was no longer in the same class as Kevin, but I heard him and others talking about applying to private schools during lunch breaks. I was looking forward to soon leaving this boring group life behind. Michael, which high school will you go to? Ah, I'm not going to high school, I replied. What? Mom and Linda were both surprised. I want to work, I said, and got a job at a nearby construction site. My senior was strict. When I think about it, I didn't have much stamina. And I wasn't good at sports either. Mom and Linda insisted, at least get your high school diploma, and Linda told me about the high school equivalency exam. Working on the construction site was tough, but I preferred it to the monotony, and I could handle the seniors yelling. On rainy days when work was off, Linda would help me study intensively. Grandma was as lively as ever and said nothing about the path I was choosing. As long as you are happy, Michael, that's all that matters to me, she said, ever the kind grandma she always was. With my first paycheck, I bought a phone and a computer, gave my mom $200 monthly for living expenses, and took the whole family out for a meal. I took a family photo with my new phone. Everyone had the biggest smiles. During the summer, I worked hard, got tanned, and sweated a lot. My nocturnal habits corrected themselves, and I got used to the work. At night, I would play some games on the computer and chat with online friends before going to bed early. Linda said, "You're probably ready for the high school equivalency exam by now," and sure enough, I passed it at 17. But instead of opting for desk work, I got my driver's license when I turned 18. While browsing magazines at a convenience store, I found an ad for a local driving job. So, I switched jobs. Driving was less stressful in terms of human relations and felt easygoing. I was physically fit and worked with a smile. Feeling peckish, I stopped by my usual convenience store. Then, the last person I wanted to see was there. Kevin. Hey. Are you a driver now? Poor guy couldn't even go to college, huh? Did you not make it to high school either? Yeah, Kevin. Long time no see. Well, it's because I hate school, I said, quickly moving away from Kevin. That evening, I received a call on my phone from Linda. I pulled over my truck to call her back. Michael, please stay calm. Grandma has. Grandma collapsed. She's at the hospital now. Understood. I'll get there as soon as I can. Please text me the location, I said, and then called my company. After delivering the last of the cargo, I headed to the hospital. By the time I arrived, it was too late. It was a sudden myocardial infarction. My mom and Linda were in tears. Grandma had slipped into a deep sleep. She would never awaken. The grandma who had always been kind to me. Her sleeping face was peacefully smiling a little. The next day, my mom bravely managed a family funeral and we returned home. Later, Grandma was laid to rest with Grandpa. There, among the sounds of cicadas, a single sunflower bloomed sternly. Just like Grandma's ever-smiling face, and tears rolled down my cheeks. My mom took about a month off from work. Eventually, we cleared out Grandma's house. While sorting through an old dresser, my mom found Grandma's will. Through a lawyer, we learned it mentioned an inheritance for my mom and me. Grandma had sold some land in the countryside for a significant amount. With that money, my mom demolished the old house and turned the land into a parking lot, creating a source of passive income for her and Linda. The house where I had lived since elementary school. The room where I had become a truant and a recluse. That's right. After Dad passed away, I told Grandma I want to become a doctor. My mom and Linda moved into a 3-bedroom apartment, and Linda was very happy with the system kitchen. It seems my mom bought the apartment with Grandma's inheritance. It's close to her workplace. Linda had recovered fully and took over all the household chores. Lying in bed in my new home, I stared at the ceiling. Even as a child, after my dad went to heaven, I had lost the will to do anything, but I respected Dr. Smith, who had seen my dad through to the end. And Grandma, who bought me textbooks instead of games and suggested I go to tutoring school. My mom, who struggled alone, and Linda, who taught me diligently. I had been isolated at school, but I was supported by various people all this time. Thinking this, I felt I could finally fulfill the dream I had held as a child. Now, with Grandma's inheritance, I could afford to go to college. So, I talked to my mom and Linda, thanked my current employer, and resigned. I asked Linda to help me again, and I began to review high school level studies. I had saved up quite a bit from my work, and although I tried to give some money to my mom for living expenses, she wouldn't accept it. I will support your dream, Michael, she said. Through my computer, I conversed with professionals in the medical field and learned the specialized terminology. And then, I applied to medical school. Well, if it doesn't work out, I'll look for another job. If I'm healthy, I can do anything. While remembering my days on the construction site and as a driver, I faced the exam with a mindset of having nothing to lose. I passed the exam. I was surprised myself. My mom and Linda ordered sushi for the celebration. During my university years, I made a friend named Jason. Why do you want to become a doctor, Michael? Well, my dad died of cancer a long time ago, and Dr. Smith, who was caring for him then, was such a kind person. I've admired him since I was a child, I explained. I see, our stories are similar. In my case, it was Dr. Carter who took care of my mom, Jason shared. I get it. We talked about various things, and although I started university a year late, I diligently focused on my studies without rushing. And I began tutoring online at night. Teaching really helps reinforce what you've learned. Sometimes I stumbled, and when that happened, I relied on Linda's help. In my memories, my dad was a very kind and serious man. I continued working part-time during the summer break and earnestly earned my academic credits. Sometimes, exhausted, Jason and I would go out into the city. I'm not much of a drinker, but we had a great time talking about various things at the pub. There were times I came home drunk and surprised my mom. But I really enjoyed it. For the first time in a school setting, making a friend meant a lot to me. Encouraged by each other, Jason and I both obtained our medical licenses. By that time, I was 25 years old. I then became a trainee at a university hospital. Linda, feeling better, started going to a factory nearby for some simple part-time work in the mornings. Our entire family became busy with their respective schedules. Jason also became a trainee at a general hospital and was working hard. At the age of 27, I began working as an internist at the university hospital. My dream had come true. But being a doctor is a very demanding job. Jason worked as a surgeon. My first operation made me sweat profusely, but I was thrilled with its success. Patients' families thanked me, and on rare days off, I would go out for drinks with Jason. It was a fulfilling time. Although Jason and I rarely had the same days off, we kept in touch via text. We're so busy, it's impossible to find a girlfriend. Yeah, hopefully, we'll find someone someday. We were just discussing this. One Wednesday after training, as I was walking slowly toward a bookstore. On a particularly sunny summer day, a man in his 50s suddenly collapsed right in front of me. I rushed over immediately. His heartbeat felt a bit fast, and I called an ambulance. My guess was heatstroke, but he was unconscious and in a dangerous state. I accompanied him in the ambulance to a nearby general hospital. The man received first aid and regained consciousness, and a nurse came out. It was indeed heatstroke. I stayed with him in the hospital room until his family arrived. Though he was still dazed, he looked at me and muttered, "Is this a hospital?" "Yes, it seems you've suffered from heatstroke," I responded, just as a very beautiful woman appeared in the room. "Thank you for helping my father. My name is Emily. I'd like to thank you later." "No need for thanks. I'm a doctor. I just did what any doctor would do," I said, intending to leave. She asked for my name, but I told her it was already registered at the reception, and then I took a taxi home. And so began my busy days. I received a call from her, thanking me for my help. Days passed in a blur. I usually spent my days off sleeping, but with the weather cooling down, I decided to visit the downtown bookstore again. While walking through the city on my day off, I unfortunately ran into someone I didn't want to see. "Isn't that Michael?" Kevin. "Hey. Long time no see. Still dressing in cheap casuals, huh?" Despite the long time since our last meeting, he still enjoyed making snide remarks. "Are you off today? If you've got time, there's a favor I need to ask." "Yeah, I'm off." "What is it?" "There's a mixer today, but someone suddenly had to cancel. I was wondering if you could join us?" "Of course, it's free of charge." A mixer, huh? I'm not really dressed for it, and you spring this on me all of a sudden. Please, man. You've always been like this, haven't you? Only ever tossing insults my way. Eh? Was I? Well, I apologize for that. To make it up to you, I'll treat you today. Well, if all I have to do is sit there. I relented and followed him into a fancy Italian restaurant. We arrived early and Kevin ordered the food, while drinks were served first. Then, a trio of very beautiful women entered the restaurant. One of them looked familiar, but I meet so many people every day, I couldn't place her. According to Kevin, all the women tonight were flight attendants. They were all dressed elegantly in suits and beautiful dresses. Kevin then started talking non-stop. I work for a top-tier company and often go abroad. I met one of these ladies on a trip and managed to get them to come out tonight. As he said this, the three women introduced themselves by name. I felt quite out of place. Sorry everyone. The two guys who were supposed to come today couldn't make it, so I ran into this guy in town and dragged him along. He's a low-educated driver, and we've been classmates since elementary school, Kevin blurted out. Kevin had mentioned one person missing, but there were three women. Another lie from Kevin. And then, he belittled me once more. Ignoring such Kevin, one of the women recognized me. Michael? What are you doing here? Emily, you know this guy? Know him? This man is the savior of my father's life. What? I finally remembered. She was the daughter of the man who had suffered heat stroke. Ah, from that time. Yes, that's right. Kevin. Why would you say he's just a driver? Eh? I just met him after a long time, and since he was always poor and working as a driver after graduating from middle school. What? Michael is a doctor at a university hospital. What? Emily, I just happened to have the day off today. I was on my way to a bookstore when I bumped into Kevin, and he suddenly invited me here. I explained as the other women murmured, a doctor? This guy's a doctor? That must be a lie. No, he saved my father, and I've visited the university hospital several times to thank him, but Michael has been very busy. What? Michael's a doctor at the university hospital? Kevin, I'm currently an internist. What? I can't believe it. The atmosphere froze. After a while, the chatty Kevin quieted down, and the women started talking to me. I nodded along and enjoyed my meal. Then, I left the place. Kevin ended up paying for the meal. After a while, I received a text from Emily. I was happy to have met you by chance the other day. I know you're busy, but would you like to go out for a meal sometime? Despite both of our busy schedules, we managed to set a date and went out to eat for the first time. Preferring a simpler setting as fancy restaurants tend to tire me, we decided to meet at a family restaurant. There, Emily surprised me by asking if we could start dating. Emily's father also works for a multinational company and is quite busy. Understanding each other's hectic lives, we began to deepen our relationship through regular dinners and movie dates. Emily lost her mother when she was young and was raised by her father alone. I shared my family background with her. Emily also visited my home and got along well with my mom and Linda, who were thrilled by her visits. After a year of dating, I proposed to Emily, and we got married, continuing to support each other amidst our busy lives. Even managing household chores together. One day, while Emily and I were shopping, we bumped into Kevin. Michael. Hey, you know that mixer was my idea, right? Kevin, unlike you who judges people by their educational background and job, Michael is completely different, Emily retorted sharply. Kevin froze, and we continued our shopping, ignoring him. Jason also mentioned that he had found a girlfriend. Although we hardly had time for a wedding ceremony, we planned to have one when possible, inviting Emily's father too. In the midst of these plans, Emily became pregnant and gave birth to a beautiful daughter. Remembering my isolated school days, I was moved to tears by the new life we had created. We built a house near my mom's apartment, turning it into a multi-generational home to live together with Emily's father. Emily quit her job to focus on raising our daughter, with Linda and my mom also helping out, both moved to tears by their first grandchild. Emily's father was utterly smitten with his granddaughter. Our daughter was born in the summer. In the small garden by our front door, a single sunflower blooms resolutely each day. I am reminded of the smiling faces of my dad and grandma from days long past. Thus, I live happily with my family now, feeling as if my dad and grandma have always been supporting me. Grateful for these serendipitous meetings, I vow to continue protecting many lives as a doctor.